All right, well, welcome back, everybody. I'm really excited about this class. Terry Firkins couldn't be here today. She is with her family in California. They were able to get there to see her mother-in-law, and so this is their last night there. So she is with her family, which is where she should be. She made a good choice. So tonight, we wanted to just check in, and with our check-in tonight, we're going to ask you a one-word question, and that question is ayeka. It means, where are you? Where are you right now? How are you feeling right now today? And if you could give us a one-word answer to that one-word question, that will just get us warmed up a little bit. So I'll start, just, because it seems only fair. I've had some time to think about it. I would say my one word is anticipating. I guess I'll call on people. Jackie.
Stressed.
Liz.
Anxious.
Shelley.
Shelley, you're muted.
Unmute show.
Okay, my word is peaceful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Diane.
Well, I probably have to use two words: stressed and great. Two opposites, but two different reasons.
That's awesome. Jordana.
Unsettled.
Adam.
Hineni.
That's a great response to Ayeka. Heidi.
Hopeful.
Karen.
Worried.
Margie. Oh, you're muted.
Anxious.
Ross.
Just like my friend Heidi, hopeful.
Good. Lori.
Just like Adam, Hineni.
Naomi. Naomi, you have to unmute.
Concerned.
Louise.
Unsettled.
Charlie.
Relieved.
Debbie.
Uncertain.
Pam.
Uneasy.
Stan.
Anticipatory.
Marilyn.
Optimistic.
Ronnie.
I was going to say bit relieved. 2 words.
That's good. Craig.
Limbo.
And Terry.
I have to do 2 words: practicing patience.
So tonight we're going to spend a little time. We're going to spend a little time digging into a midah that is called menuchat hanefesh, or the resting of the soul, as we explore a little bit about how the shape of the week, in particular Shabbat, can help us practice tikkun midot, our, the soul traits that we're looking to work on every day and every week. So Terry, did you want to say anything before we dig into the text study?
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the first session, so I don't want to be repetitive, and I'm not sure exactly whether you just did the practice or had some introduction to mindfulness. Could I just see a hand, people who have some kind of mindfulness practice or meditation practice, you're at least somewhat familiar with it? Not, okay? And maybe the other way, if you haven't had any practice and it's brand new. Hands? Nah. Yeah, okay. So I just want to say a couple words about why the mindfulness meditation is such a core part of our midot work. And I'm sure Firkin said this, but it's really a practice of focused attention. And I know you went through the three central elements, which is hitlamdut, which is curiosity and openness that we bring to the practice. And then the moment of awareness, of noticing when we have been pulled away from our focused attention, which leads to a bechira, or a choice point, to tshuva, which is to return to the focus of attention. The moment of awareness is really the moment of transformation, because that's the gift. We don't choose to become aware, it just happens. But when it happens, we then have the freedom to say, oh, I've been pulled away. I can come back to my intention and my attention. In the case of our own practice here, to the breath. Why this is important for midot practice? Because essentially midot practice is an awareness practice. You're driving along the street and suddenly you become aware that you're angry. The guy in front of you cut you off, you notice your anger, and then you go, oh, I have a choice. I can keep going with the anger, or I can actually take a few deep breaths, practice patience, and calm myself down. It's like going to the gym. Instead of muscle memory, we're building brain memory, so that awareness occurs more often because you've done the practice in your chair, for 5 minutes, 3 times a week, which is what we hope minimum you will do for this course. Does that all make sense? So it's really a way of bringing yourself to observe yourself in a structured environment, so that when you're out living your life, that observational capacity is more possible, happens more regularly. And we want to build that capacity over time so that you can focus your attention. So tonight we're just going to do a short mindfulness meditation practice on the breath, and we'll integrate it with the text study that Alison is going to introduce. But before she does, any quick questions about what I said? Anything? Everybody get basically the gist? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Alison?
Okay. So hopefully everyone received the handout. If you've got that, let's follow along together, and let's begin with the blessing for the study of Torah, and we'll take it from there. So together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu divrei Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Marilyn, yes.
I have it. I did not print it out. I thought I would be able to look at it while we're doing it, but I have to leave this screen to go to another screen to find it. Yeah, unless you're going to do a screen share, I don't know.
I wasn't going to do a screen share because I really like to see everybody's face. I like for us to be able to engage in a conversation, and it's hard if I do a screen share, we can only see like 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, I understand.
So if you have another computer and you can, or an iPad or something, and you can access it from there.
Try to do that.
I was on my phone.
Who would have sent it?
What, excuse me?
Who would have sent it so I can find it?
Oh, I sent it, but I sent it through Google Docs. It's in a Google Doc.
It's also an
It's
attachment.
also just attached to the email, so I think you can get it right from the email.
It is.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
it is.
No.
Okay. Okay, so Marilyn will rejoin us shortly, I hope.
I got it, Marilyn. I got it in here.
Okay. So in order to
If you
study-
guys, if you get Allison's email, there's an attachment and you just open the attachment, you should find it.
Open Allison's email from today.
Yeah, Craig, can you do that? Wait,
Craig, why don't,
It's
Allison,
fine.
while you're
It's fine. Don't worry. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out.
Allison, while you're doing that, I'll forward mine to Craig.
Great.
So you can start and I'll
Okay,
do.
that's great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so in order to study Shabbat and setting intentions for Shabbat, I think we really need to first look at the first Shabbat. I'm not going to go through in great detail because it's a short class, but I do want to just ground us a little bit in creation in the very first Shabbat that we have. So it's the 6th day, and on the 6th day, God creates all the living creatures, cattle, creeping things, beasts, and creeping things. And God sees that it's good. And then after all those things are created, it must have taken at least a little bit of time in that day to create those things. So the day is worn on a little bit. And God creates human beings. And says to the human beings that they're going to have responsibility to take care of all of the fish and the birds and the cattle, the whole earth. And so God creates human beings in God's image, tells them to be fertile and increase and fill the earth. And then God gives them food. He says these plants are going to be your food. These other plants are going to be the food for the animals on the earth. And God takes a look and says that it's all very good. And now I'm reading from chapter 2, verse 1. The heaven and earth were finished and all their array. And on the 7th day, God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased, vayishbot, which is like a verb form of Shabbat. God ceased on the 7th day from all the work God had done. And God blessed the 7th day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased, again, Shabbat, same root as Shabbat, from all the work of creation that God had done. So in this text, the word Shabbat appears as a verb. And so I just want to think a little bit about what it means just keep it in the back of your mind. What does it mean to Shabbat? Or what does it mean that God Shabbated on the 7th day? And then I'd like to talk a little bit about the trajectory of creation and what do we understand Adam and Eve's experience to have been from the moment of their creation. What's happening to Adam and Eve here? Pam.
They're kind of going through the same process that Terry just laid out. So they're becoming curious, they're becoming aware. Maybe it stops there, but I think that's the process that they're going through.
Okay, they're becoming aware, for sure. Other ideas about what they're experiencing? Ronnie.
They're giving a job. They're giving several jobs.
Yes, they're given jobs to rule the earth and to take care of it and also to eat and be fertile and multiply. So other things they're experiencing.
They're also given rules. You didn't read that part of the text, but they're given rules. You can eat this, but definitely don't eat that.
Right. For sure. Other ideas about what they're experiencing? Ronnie.
They're created in God's image. They have a model that they are given the job to reflect on.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a whole lot we could unpack about what it means for them to be created in God's image. Can everybody mute unless you're speaking?
So they feel like they might get a more favorable split of those votes coming in.
Thank you.
Somebody's TV or something is on.
In that state, and it really shows.
Who's not?
Thank you. Okay, Margie.
Well, they're having the first relationship, between a man and a woman, and the first relationship between any people.
Okay, yes, they're in relationship, and we understand that better when we get further along in chapter 2, which sort of is another telling of the creation story, and there's an explanation about why God creates Eve as Adam's partner. Stan.
Stan, you're muted.
You have to unmute, Stan.
What does the future lie ahead for them?
So what's their future? Okay, so Jackie, did you want to say something?
Yes, and then it says, and the heaven and earth were finished. It sounded like the whole plan was done. It was not, everything God wanted happened.
Right. So I'm going to get a little picayune here and say, so God finishes heaven and earth, and God looks around and sees that it's all very good. All the people, everything's finished. And there was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. So the first thing that happens is that Adam and Eve experience night. And immediately following that, they experience Shabbat. Before they have a chance to follow any of those rules or come into full awareness or even to explore the place where they're at, the first thing that happens to them is Shabbat. And I'd like for us to just think about, just for a moment, what it means for Shabbat to be the first experience. Because normally when we think about Shabbat, and I think it's really easy to fall into this pattern, is that we feel like, well, we work for 6 days and then we have Shabbat. Well, God did that, but actually for human beings, they had Shabbat and then they could dig into their work. So if we thought about Shabbat as our first experience, how does that change things for us? And compare that to what God is experiencing. So God does all this work, and then God Shabbats. And so if we're created in God's image, what is it that we can take from that idea? What is Shabbating in this context? Karen.
A cessation of work. I mean, whatever it is that you've been working on, whatever your mission has been that you've attended to for all the days previously, you're stopped. You're not doing it anymore.
Right. So God is, Eileen.
Am I mute or?
No, now you're good.
No, I'm good. Okay. I think God's thrilled. I mean, he's just created this great thing, and there's great joy, and he's thrilled that he's done this. I would have been thrilled too,
And probably tired. Like, right?
Entire,
right.
Yeah.
Ross, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that if the first thing that Adam and Eve experienced was Shabbat, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So the notion of experiencing Shabbat can only be experienced if you've already experienced working, because it's the cessation of something. But if you haven't done something to cessate, then you can't experience that thing yet.
Right. So that's really interesting to feel like what that must have felt like for them.
So how could it have been? How could they have experienced Shabbat? They couldn't, because they hadn't experienced what it would take to then get to the point of stopping something.
Heidi.
To jump on to what Ross was saying, the concept of holiness, the separation between holiness and the rest of the week, they maybe weren't able to appreciate the holiness to the same extent, just like they weren't able to maybe experience and enjoy the rest as much, because they hadn't had that structure of got to get this done, got to get this done.
Nice. Debbie.
It's an interesting thought, which is, can you appreciate something if you haven't had the other? Could it also start with they had the epitome of what you want, and the next day they're like, oh my gosh, how do we get back to that? So that there's a sense that that's what I'm constantly striving for, is how to get back to where I started. So where I was like stunned when you said that, Ross, I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting contrast. But what does it mean to start with something and then move into the other and say, no, I want to get back to what I had before? So.
Right, so flipping it. Shelley.
Just getting back to your original question. What is it like to start with Shabbat? What I imagine is, if you start with Shabbat, it's peaceful. And it is the normal, the only normal you know, because you're born in it. And that's, in effect, you're bathed in Shabbat from the moment that you are born. And this is how you think life is going to be. And then comes the next day and a big shock, and the days that follow it, etc. And so then, but after 6 days of that madness, like the 6 days preceding our election here, then all of a sudden peace comes back. Shabbat comes back again. And so you get into the rhythm. But it seems to me perfectly, if you said, is it better to be born in Shabbat, or is it better to be born the day after Shabbat and experience this, as the seventh day? I'd have to think about that for a long time.
Thank you. Diane.
Yeah, I would say that if the first day is Shabbat, doesn't that set the tone for the rest of the week?
Right,
and you bring the feeling of Shabbat into the rest of the week, as opposed to we work all week and we end the week with Shabbat.
Right. There's something to build on what Debbie and Shelley and Diane are saying about sort of experiencing the extraordinary, that which is most holy, to be bathed in the presence of God, and then to know that that's something to be striving for, to know that
carry with you for the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Debbie.
Thinking it's sort of like being raised in a family where you feel loved and held and tended to and cared for. And when you go through the world, even if you meet relationships where you're not feeling that, you're like, you keep searching until you can get back to that feeling that you had initially. So I would think it's a similar idea. You know what it is you want to get back to. So starting from that point is a good thing.
So let's go to the next text. So this is another place in the Torah that mentions Shabbat, and it uses a different word for God's experience of Shabbat. It says that the children of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the generations as a covenant for all time. It shall be a sign for all time between me, that God, and the children of Israel. For in 6 days God made the heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God rested and was refreshed. And the Hebrew for that is Shabbat vayinafash. So God Shabbated and his soul was refreshed. Vayinafash plays on the root nefesh, which means soul. And so his soul, God's soul was refreshed. So what does it mean to you to Shabbat in a way that will refresh your soul? Pam.
I think that's a really, really interesting question in a pandemic, because when people are home and they're not getting a lot of their typical daily routine, and then Shabbat comes, I've actually been thinking about this a lot, especially relative to my parents. Like, what does that mean? Like, what break in routine is there, and what if? I mean, I'm throwing the question back, but like, what does it mean to get nourished when in a time that it's very difficult to get nourished, and then you're kind of commanded, or you're given the opportunity to step back and nourish yourself. But what does that mean when you can't really be in a relationship with people? Yeah, sorry, no answer to this question.
Good question. Marilyn.
To reflect on what you've said, Pam, I think to place almost anything in the framework of the pandemic is placing it in some other place right now, the place in which we're living right now. But to get back to the question of what does Shabbat mean to me, it means the rest of Shabbat, the peace of Shabbat, the separating myself from the rest of the week, where if I want to stay home in my family room and put my feet up and nap or read, I don't feel as though I have to be pushed to do anything else. I don't have to answer the telephone if I don't feel like it. I don't have to go to the computer 15 times an hour and see what's going on there for me. I can just leave all that to the other days of the week and create a whole new sense of who I am on Shabbat.
Thank you. Terry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking about this in my meditation practice, which is really the experience I have of Shabbat is actually not too linear, and it's not so much about separating myself from other things, but actually separating myself from my own busyness of mind. Like, you can get away from things. You can not go shopping, you not answer the phone. And I notice that that's something I have a hard time doing, but I even have a harder time stopping my brain from doing the things that keep me from what you said, Marilyn, really truly resting. Like, what does it mean to rest in myself? Not just with and creating a structure is obviously important, but what does it mean to rest in myself? To have rest be a way of being. Like when we go back to the last text, when God says, let us make man in our image, and God's making, isn't it, my sense is that God is giving within us the potential for rest in our soul. But like everything else, we cultivate plants, we cultivate life, we have to cultivate our soul too. And that personal cultivation could mean that I could be in Shabbat anywhere. If I really practice. Maybe in the next life. I don't think there are enough days left for me to practice in this life. But I just wanted to say that because I realized that I can get away from a lot of things, but this is a tough one. Really, and especially during the pandemic, Pam, right? Because I don't have those normal distractions.
Lori, did you want to say something?
I was just thinking about taking a step back from the myopic view of during the week, and then also adding in gratitude. And so just sort of like in a mindset of just looking at my life a little bit differently. I think that would be a good practice if I could get into that.
Nice. So I'm going to move us to the next text. I'm sorry to go quickly, but I want to make sure we have time for a practice, because I think this text, Pam, in some ways begins to build on what Terry said and to answer this question a little bit. And I have to, this is with great gratitude to a colleague of mine who works for an organization called One Table. And if you have kids who are in their 20s, you should know about One Table, which is reaching out to young adults, particularly post-college, to engage in celebrating Shabbat every week. So check it out. It's really amazing. So Jessica Minin is one of their, she oversees their programming. And she shared in a Devar Torah that she wrote for Shabbat, the Shabbat where we read Parshat Noach. She shared these words. So the Sfat Emet, who is Rabbi Aryeh Leib Alter, was a Polish rabbi and a Torah scholar from the late 19th century. And he compares Shabbat to the ark that Noah built. And he says, during the week, we are engulfed by a flood: work, media, childcare, politics, fires, pandemic. On Shabbat, we're invited to enter a different kind of space. We can let go, allowing ourselves a freedom that can revive our bodies and souls at the deepest level. The Sfat Emet calls this elevation of self bitul hayesh, a cancellation of what is. We go above the fray. We're safe from the flood. We can experience a unique serenity, the possibility of what may be. An Italian scholar writing very soon after the Sfat Emet, Moshe Cassuto, writes that the only other time we encounter the word teva or ark in the Torah is in the origin story of Moses. The basket in which Moses is placed to escape Pharaoh's decree is called a teva. And in both narratives, the teva is a vessel of survival, the means by which we are saved. So too can Shabbat revive us and save us if only we let it. So she pulls out these teaching from the Sfat Emet and Rabbi Cassuto and says, Shabbat is like this protective ark, like this thing that can encapsulate us and keep us protected from the craziness that we experience. And whether or not we're with other people, whether or not we are able to do what we would normally do, but even in the midst of a pandemic, we can lift ourselves up for just a few hours a week and put ourselves in a different mindset, because we can be protected by the shelter of Shabbat. So I'm going to invite everyone to think a little bit about how Shabbat can be a source of protection for your soul. And then as we go to the last text before we engage in a practice, and I want to thank Joel for bringing this text forward in a study that we did last week with the Babait families and participants. So Abraham Joshua Heschel teaches the meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. So where Jessica talks and the Sfat Emet talk about Shabbat as putting us in a new, different kind of space, Heschel teaches us that Shabbat is about putting ourselves in a different kind of time. And he says 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On the Shabbat, we try to become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation. I love that line because it takes me right back to Adam and Eve, that we read in Bereshit, right? That God is turning away from the results of God's creation and then sharing with Adam and Eve the mystery of creation. It takes us from the world of creation to the creation of the world. So how I just for our reflection as we move forward, I invite you to think about how your observance of Shabbat can be experienced as holy or sacred time, and how can that sort of engaging in this, whatever it is that makes the time holy for you, how can that be protective of yourself and your soul, and enable you to care for yourself in the craziness of the world that we're living in. So just a few questions to think about. And I'm going to turn it over to Terry so we can reflect a little bit on those questions and engage in a mindfulness practice.
So I would just say put the questions aside for now, because we're just going to focus on the breath for a few minutes and just develop that practice a little bit more. I'm gonna do a little bit of talking. The whole thing will take about 5 minutes, and there'll be some silence so that we all can do the practice. When you stop hearing my voice, that's kind of the signal to follow the instruction that I just gave. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. So everybody has somebody has some background noise. I just want to, can you guys everybody mute yourself, please? Great. Thank you. Okay. So everybody has their own way of sitting comfortably, which is fine. There are just a couple of recommendations, and one is to not overarch your back, but just to sit straight but relaxed. It feels like a sense of dignity. With your feet on the floor. We just want some energy in your body so that we don't fall asleep, but also some balance in our posture. So we're going to be relaxed and at ease, but also alert as we do this practice together. Very natural way of sitting. And if you're comfortable, please close your eyes. However you feel most at ease. If your eyes are open, they could be just a little bit open where you're gazing downward, and find a spot to gaze upon. So to begin with, invite yourself into your space. And just listen to any sounds, my voice or any other sounds. And don't try to push anything away or run after anything. Just allow the sounds to come and go, to wash through you. Just feel your body. Notice any areas of tension. See if you can let a little of that tension go. Notice any feelings in your body. Maybe your fingers are touching each other. You have that sensation. You might feel some pulsing or throbbing or pressure, whatever it is. And you don't have to name these things. Just go as deep as you can to feel them. Just to feel what's there. Bringing a sense of Hilamdut, curiosity. Oh, I feel some tension in my neck or some tingling in my hands, or maybe some lightness. Or heaviness, whatever it is. And bring your attention on the same level of these feeling sensations to the breath. Just the normal, natural breath. And see if you can find a place where you feel it most distinctly. Maybe the nostrils, or the back of the throat, or the chest, or the abdomen. Find that place and bring your attention there. And just rest your attention as we breathe in and out. See if you can feel just one breath without concern for whether it's here or has gone, without anticipating the next breath. Just be present and rest in one breath. Feel yourself being breathed. Now, sometimes you'll be pulled away by some images or sounds or sensations or even emotions may come up. But they won't be strong if you can stay connected to the feeling of the breath. The moment that you're aware that you have a thought, a worry, a fantasy, a feeling, just let them flow by. And go back to just breathing one breath. And if you do get lost in thought or get pulled away for some time, just don't worry about it. The most important moment in the process is the next moment after you notice that you've been gone, the moment of Bechira. It's the moment of recognition, which then enables you to let it go gently and with great heartfulness and kindness to yourself. Return your attention to the breath. Very important to be kind and to know that this is the process. If you're not distracted, you can't return. And Shuvah, returning to the breath, is the transformation. So I will stop talking and just let us sit for a couple minutes together in silence. The practice of focusing on the breath. You're going to hear a chime to begin, and then a chime when it ends. May we remember that we can always find Shabbat in ourselves, that the healing is in the return, not in never having wandered in the first place. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes or lift your gaze, and we'll end the meditation when you're ready. Everybody here? Yeah. Allie?
I wasn't sure if you wanted to debrief that a little bit.
I didn't know if we had time. I would love to, if we have just a minute. Any comments? What, just general, how was it? What did you notice? Yes. Louise.
It was lovely. I wish there sort of like a handout for that. I know it's probably a recording, but something that we could follow along, or that we could listen to at home.
Let me talk to Alison about it. There are a number of guided meditations that are online, but this one I kind of made up with other, I took parts of it from other teachers and kind of put it together myself. I could write something up and send it, and then you could record it, or maybe I can record it.
I wonder if we could even take it from this recording.
Oh,
I mean, it's possible because this class is recorded, so so that we can share it with the members of the class who aren't here. But if not, Terry, maybe you can
do a recording
and we can send it out to everyone, because it's nice to have a guide especially when you're new to, I mean, at least for me, I find it's really helpful to have a guide.
So I love the simplicity of it, and I do meditate, but I really love the simplicity of that. I thought it was really quite lovely.
I'm glad. Anyone else? Okay. Just raise your hand if you found it helpful, or was it something that it's not, the word is not like or not like, but just supportive. Okay, great.
Harry?
And if you have any questions, please email me, or yes.
I felt refreshed even from that short little meditation, which
wonderful.
Was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Vayinafash. Good. So I was just going to say, going into Shabbat, or going part of our homework, as Alison will describe, is really to think about what it means to rest ourselves, our souls. And Shabbat is a great time to practice. But if you can do this meditation, just focusing on the breath and noticing when you're distracted, at least 5 minutes a day, 3 times a week as a minimum, really you'll begin to see shifts, especially for people who haven't meditated before. It gets easier, it gets more natural, and it really supports the practice of midot. So that's one homework.
Lori. And Lori, did you have something?
I wanted to say thank you for that. I have done that before, and with guide, and this was the first time that the notion of when a thought pops in my head, that bechira moment to choose, just to notice that it's there, because I haven't been able to put that together.
Oh, great. That's really, wonderful.
Thank you. It's so core to the practice. So thank you, Lori. Marilyn.
Terry, I would say that just coming in touch with my breath, with my breathing, was very otherworldly. It really was a wonderfully peaceful feeling. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great. Terrific. And if you didn't feel anything, it's okay. There is no right, no wrong. So, some people might be saying, God, I didn't feel that peace. Maybe I didn't do it right. Not true. Whatever you got, it was perfect. There is no way you could do it wrong. You can only do it perfectly. And it's just doing it. It really is key.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
So on the handout, we've included some instructions for practice over the next couple of weeks. The goal is to think about setting an intention, especially for Shabbat. But also I would say to set an intention for how you're thinking about Shabbat or holding on to some little piece of Shabbat during the week that will help you to stay grounded. So as you go into the next Shabbat, you can set a new intention. There are a series of questions that we've provided here that just are there to help guide your practice. If these questions work for you, great. If they don't work for you, however it is that you want to go about setting your intention and thinking about it and reflecting on it, that's great too. But I would encourage you to set your intention and then notice, when your intention falls away, and bring it back. Use your bechira, the freedom that you have to choose, to return and to do tshuva back to your intention. And it will happen over and over and over again in the same way it does for meditation. But that is what the practice is about. It's the noticing and returning over and over and over again. I've listed a bunch of potential focus phrases here that might help you with your intention, just to remind you to do it. And the idea here is pick one of these or come up with another one that works better for you. Write it on a sticky note and put it somewhere prominent, like on your bathroom mirror, or there's someone who we've studied with before who put it inside her refrigerator because she knew that she would be opening that refrigerator. So just find a place that works for you so that it reminds you to think about your intention. I will, by tomorrow, make sure that everyone is connected with the chavruta, and we'll send out a list to make sure most of the chavruta pairs are set and fine, but there's a few people, and I think most of you, well, I'll send out the whole list again just to make sure that everybody is clear on who you're meeting with. So try to meet with your chavruta a couple of times to talk about how it's going, and to support one another in intention setting and returning. And it's become a practice for at least when I started teaching with Firkins, because she loves poetry so much, to end with a poem. And so this will bring Firkins' presence into our Zoom room, even though she's not here physically. So I've chosen a poem by Marge Piercy, and I would love it if someone else would read it. Anyone who's willing.
I'd be happy to if you want.
That would be great. Thank you, Adam.
Sure. A scarf trailing over the lilac sunset, fair weather clouds, cirrus uncinus, silk chiffon. Twilight softens the air, whispering, come, lie down with me. Untie the knots of the will. Loosen your clenched grip, barren hills of bone. Here, no edges too honed, only the palm fallen, open as a rose, about to toss its petals. What have you made? which you have spoiled, let go. Let twilight empty the crowded rooms, quiet the jostling colors of hues of swirling water, pearls of fog. This is the time for letting go, like a released balloon dwindling. Tilt your neck and let your face open to the sky, like a pond catching the light, drinking the darkness.
May you find your time for letting go, and may it touch your soul, and may you find it refreshed. So I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom, even though we're a few days away. And thank you all, and feel free to reach out if you have questions or concerns.
And if you have questions about
Thank
the
you.
mindfulness practice, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to talk with you. We'll work it out.
Thank you all.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Great to study
Thank
with
you.
you.
See you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
I can't make that commitment though.
Sitting for now.
She's gonna pass out papers. I got more papers. Jim.
You don't have to look at the paper. You can get out of it whenever you want.
I'll sit with you.
Okay.
Not 3 times
Once a week.
once a week.
Is Margie asleep?
Yeah.
Yeah. Margie?
I want to tell you about this woman.
Marilyn and Stan?
Yes.
There's a little button there that says leave meeting.
Oh, right. Thank you. I
You're
know.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Terry, I'm just going to call you. I'm going to hang up
Okay.
and then.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.